Greetings, JMS students. If you're watching this is because you are a 5th grader and you are ready to start your second project. For this project, we'll be studying forms, and we'll be using ebony pencils and watercolors. Okay, we're going to start off by doing this project that you see on the screen in front of you. We're going to be starting off by making the forms there. Okay, we'll be doing ebony pencils. So for this, you're going to need an ebony pencil, an eraser, and a Kleenex. You could use your finger, but it will make your project a little bit yellow and nasty looking. So I suggest just using a Kleenex. So we're going to start off by drawing 4 basic forms in various shapes. We got your cube, your cylinder, a cone, and spheres. Okay. Once you're done with that, once you have your basic forms drawn in, we're going to start adding value or shading them. Okay. What you can see here is I'm starting with my darkest value first, shading it in, and then using a Kleenex to kind of smudge and smear those lines, those values, those shades. Once I've done that, kind of clean up the edges, lighten stuff with the eraser if I need to, move on to the next form. Things you want to watch out for when this, if you're doing a surface or a face, we like to call it, geometry stuff. If you're doing a face that's flat, then you want to use straight angular lines to shade it. Okay, helps it feel more flat, helps it feel truly surface texture. Okay, if you're doing a curved surface, like we're starting on the sphere here, you're going to use curve lines. Okay, again, it's to help make it feel more curved. Just adds that extra layer of detail to it. Okay, also, your values, your shapes and forms, you need to show that they have a dark spot, a medium area, and a light area or highlight area. Okay, on your paper, doesn't matter which way it's facing or whatever. It's just important that you have a dark, a medium, and a light on each form. Okay, now we're getting into the cylinders. Now the cylinders, they have a flat surface in one direction and a curved surface in another one. Okay, depending on which way you're drawing your lines, those lines might go straight or they might curve. You'll notice on the top part there, I'm starting to use straight lines. Back to the sphere, we're using curved lines. Cleaning up those edges, keeping it crisp and neat. Craftsmanship is always good. On this cone here, you'll notice I start with straight lines, and then we start using the curved ones. At the base of the cone, you have long curved lines. As you get to the top, they get shorter. Okay. Also, you'll notice that I shaded in the whole thing. I smear the whole thing, and then I go back with the eraser and I lighten everything. You can do that too. If you got a different technique that works better for you, do that. Okay, so on this cone, you can actually see the bottom of it. Just like we've been talking about, curved lines on the curved surface, straight lines on the flat surface. You also saw right there, I didn't even use a pencil on the bottom of it. I just used the leftover stuff on the Kleenex to smear. You can do that. If you use your Kleenex enough, it will get loaded up with graphite, and you can use that as like an actual tool. Gotta drink some coffee there. Mr. Comb runs on coffee. Curved lines, show that super dark edge. Straight lines, doing that flat edge. Now, depending on how your form is turned and oriented, that flat area might be shaded, it might be light. You kind of have to think about how you want this thing to turn. It doesn't matter yet, but when we arrange them on our paper for the last time to glue them down, that will be kind of important. We'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, so I got 4 different forms in 3 different sizes. I have 3 cones, 3 spheres, 3 cylinders, 3 cubes. Okay, I want you to do at least 6 forms in total on your paper. Alright, so once you're done with that, you can start getting out the watercolor. First thing you gotta do is make sure your lid on your watercolor tray is clean. You're gonna need a bowl and a brush and a paper towel probably. And you notice that the first thing I did was put a bunch of water into the lid. Okay, when you paint with watercolors, you don't go from those ovals to the paper. You actually go from the lid to your paper. Now, what you're seeing here is a technique called wet on wet. You'll notice that I first get the brush wet, and I go from the lid to the paper, and I just kind of put a form there, just kind of a shape or something. I'm doing clouds. You can kind of do something a little bit different if you want. Just keep it light. Okay, remember, this is just going to be a background to our forms. The forms are the main idea. They are the point of emphasis. Okay, and then what I do is after I get my paper wet, I go and I touch my brush, just the tip of it, barely into the oval, just to get some raw pigment onto it. And then I go back and I touch the edges that I want to darken. Okay, so you can see there's the water, and now I got just some raw pigment on the tip of the brush to darken those areas. And then I blend it all together using more water. Some useful tips for this. When you are putting water onto your paper, you don't want to oversaturate or overwork a spot. Oversaturate means you got too much water for that paper to deal with. It's just making puddles. To overwork an area means you're actually starting to destroy the paper. You're actually going to start scraping it up. You'll start seeing like little the fibers of the paper start to peel away, and you start getting these little fur balls running across your page. You want to avoid that. If that does start happening, you do have a couple of options. Like you could just stop in that area, go to the other side of the page and let it dry. You'll notice that I step away from my work a little bit. That's because I'm letting the paint set up so I can move on to the next step, or I'm waiting for something to dry so I can go over it again. With watercolor, you gotta be pretty soft and delicate. Now I'm adding a different color in, just to the bottom of the clouds. Again, this is just something I came up with. You could do pretty much whatever you want, as long as it looks like some kind of background. We're just trying to create a backdrop for your forms to sit on. And again, we're not dipping our brush into the oval on this one. I'm going from the lid where I mix my colors to the paper, adding multiple layers over certain areas. Now what I'm doing is I'm just using a wash. If you look at my water, it's all green. That is perfect for creating a wash. We don't want to leave any spot in our paper untouched by color. So I'm just giving everything a really soft tint of green just by adding that water on it. If I need to darken it, I can go dip my brush in the green watercolors I got there and to kind of darken it up. Feel free to play with that, see what it can do. So now what I'm doing is my paper's dry and I'm cutting out all my forms. Okay, we're just cutting them out on the edges, nothing too crazy. Good tip for cutting: when you are cutting, just take that form, cut it out easily, and then go in and do your detailed cuts. You'll notice I just break them down to little sections at a time. Alright, at this point I have all my forms cut out. I got 12. You only need 6, 9, somewhere in that ballpark. But I'm arranging them just to kind of test out where I like stuff. Okay, you can see I have that one cube hanging off the edge. We'll deal with that in a minute. But what I'm doing now is just gluing everything down the way I have it arranged. And also, if you look at how I have it arranged, the lightest part of the form is always facing downward for consistency. It makes it more realistically lighted. You want to do the same thing. So at this point, our project's pretty much done. We're just letting it dry. And to help it dry, what I suggest is to also get a heavy book to place it on it, especially if your paper is curling from being too wet. Put a book on it, let it dry. And every day when you're done and you've watercolored, you always want to clean out your lid. All you gotta do is get your brush wet, scrub down those areas in the lid that you use to mix stuff in, and then get a dry paper towel to soak everything up. Watercolor cleans up super easy, it's not hard. And then when you're done with that, you need to make sure you keep it tray up. Don't tilt any of those ovals over in case there's liquid in them, and put them back into the container from which you got them. Okay. Again, they might still be wet, so make sure you carry it carefully across the classroom. Okay, and this is the final product. All my forms have been completely shaded in. Even the lightest parts have some value shaded in on them. They've been cut out and glued down. You'll notice that in the middle there I have a little bit of overlap just for some kicks. It makes it look cooler. The background's been fully painted in. There's no blank spots. Even the lightest spots have some wash on them, so everything's been utilized. That cube on the corner even got its corner cut off, so it looks like it's coming off the page. We also have a self-critique sheet glued down and attached to the back. It's been filled out. Name, hour, homeroom. Each category has been graded. Put the grades at the end, total up the score at the bottom, and you turn it into your hours tray. Good luck, have fun.